Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me today is a very special guest, well, three very special guests making up the incredible band Tragicomics. So please welcome them. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so excited to have you on. So just for the listeners, can each of you just say your name so they know who is all here?
For sure. My name's Chris. I sing and I play guitar.
I'm Laura. I play violin.
I'm Jay, and I do drums and some vocals.
And just for everybody, who is your member who's not with us today, just so they know?
Yeah, our member in absentia today is Toby. Send his best regards.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited you're joining me today. We're going to be chatting all about band life and your music, and I'm very excited. So can you guys just share a little bit about your individual journeys to getting into songwriting in the music industry, and then how you came to form your band?
I've been sort of involved in the music industry for like over a decade at this point. I originally started writing songs and playing guitar when I was sort of in my early teenage years. And then that was like a bad habit that continued in different bands until I moved to Manchester and started something like a singer-songwriter career, playing a lot of kind of solo shows and putting out some records. And then more recently got together with this bunch of miscreants in Tragicomics to play some music with kind of a wider scope than just the stuff that was sort of tumbling out of me. So I guess that's my potty journey. Do you want to speak on that, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, not too dissimilar, to be honest. I was in bands when I was in school. I think I started playing drums when I was like 10 or 11 or something. So I've been playing for quite a while. Most of my life now, and yeah, I've been playing in bands since I was in high school. I think it started off, I came from more of like a metal background, and I was playing in rough and ready sort of death metal bands that we had a lot of fun, but probably didn't sound very, very good to anyone else. And then yeah, I'd sort of come a long way since then, I think, and played in a lot of different bands and tried a lot of different genres. And discovered these guys, a few years ago, and it's been brilliant.
I guess my start is quite different. So I played violin classically since I was like 4. So I started off when my mom put me in lessons when I was a kid, and then I guess my first taste of anything more off the beaten track of like orchestral or chamber music playing was when I was 18. So I moved to Dublin to go to college, and there I joined an orchestra at my university. We did a bunch of pop covers like Daft Punk and David Bowie, and then as a result of that played festivals. And then I met some people that invited me to kind of play with their bands and do different performances like that. But then I had a break for a couple of years of playing, and I moved to Manchester and joined an orchestra here as well. I was doing that for about a year. And I guess it just stopped like fulfilling me creatively, playing classical music. And then totally by chance, I met Toby at work, and we started chatting about music, and he told me about this guy that he'd recently met who was Chris, and said that you guys had been talking about adding a violin to the band. And did I want to come down and just go to a practice and see what happened? And that was like 5 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been playing in the band ever since, and kind of totally ditched the orchestral side of things.
That's so interesting. I love how you have that classical background. I'm actually classically trained as well in piano, and I
Nice.
studied in college too. I really enjoyed classical music, but I knew that that's not the path I wanted to pursue as an artist. So yeah, similar experience to you,
Yeah, it's such a different muscle, I think.
for
Like
sure.
obviously classical music is open to interpretation, but I found it really intimidating at first having like a blank slate and here's this song and what are you going to play?
Yeah.
So I'm still like developing that skill, I think, every single song that we work on.
It swings
Absolutely.
and roundabouts, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people have this perception that it's harder to do that it's more, you've got to be more cultured or got to be played to a higher level, but then the parts are there in front of you as well.
Totally.
It's more organized and regimented. Yeah,
Hmm.
you've got to think on your feet and do more your own thing here, haven't you? So,
Yeah.
so yes, it's a completely different kettle of fish for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I gotta ask, amazing name for the band. How did you come up with it?
Not for you, Chris.
Thanks very much. So when I was doing my first forays into the kind of music business, as it were, I went under my own name, which in full is Christopher Eatough, which not the catchiest thing. And so when it came to approaching it from a band point of view and putting together this wider collective, I wanted to capture more than just the kind of personal expression. It had to be something that wasn't just coming out of one person, and it didn't just belong to one person. And I think another big kind of driving force behind this band in its initial stages was when I played solo stuff. It was pretty bleak. It was kind of morbid, depressing acoustic music, which I love unapologetically. But there's something to be said about focusing too much on the heavy, the darker side of things, and not leaving room for the light. So with the band, I really wanted to capture both sides. That it's not all tragic. That you have to laugh as much as you have to cry to kind of get through it. So I like to think that that's captured in some of the songwriting to a certain extent. That's always been my take on it. I don't know what you guys feel at this
Well,
point.
just off the back of that, I'd just say it's like I think the subject matter is still pretty bleak a lot of the time, but it's our take on it that's maybe a bit different and maybe a little bit more just making light of their dark situation in with some level of comedy.
I love the name. Like right when I saw it, it's so clever how you combine tragic and comics with the sea. It's so good. I love it. And
Thank
great
you.
explanation too. And of course, yeah. So now let's get into our quote, which is a great one that I'm excited to hear your thoughts on. So can you read that?
A good band is like a team. You want to have the right balance. It's not always the best people you need, but the right ones for the job. And that was Ronnie Hawkins.
Perfect. So can each of you share what this kind of brings up for you?
Sure. Yeah, so when Chris shared this quote with us earlier, I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is like such a fitting quote for our group. And it's something that I think, especially in 2023, like we've been reflecting on a lot amongst the four of us and really talking about kind of ourselves as a group and what it takes for us to work together effectively. So, yeah, when I read this quote, it just made me think of the fact that you could drop a prodigy into the group, but if you don't have that real like connection on a personal level and friendship and shared like kind of shared experience, you really don't create something that's as fulfilling or as meaningful, I think, as you do when you have a group of people working together who really get each other, care about each other, um, can speak openly and be really honest. And I think that's something that we've really grown amongst ourselves since we met 5 years ago to today. That we really do have this great connection, and as well as working well together musically, like really strong friendships and a great bond that I think lets us be really effective when it comes to songwriting as well.
I thought that was really well put.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I guess the only other thing or speaking a bit beyond that I took from it is, something we've had to spend a lot of time on is um, learning what's best for the song specifically, rather than what's best for any one person. And that's something that I think when we started, none of us were particularly good at, because it takes, like Laura says, it takes a long time to build up that chemistry, but also that understanding that, sometimes less is more, sometimes nothing at all is the best thing, if that's what the song needs and if that's what the room needs at that moment. And I think we've all got really really good at navigating that over the last few years. That it's not about celebrating anyone's kind of technical proficiency; it's about celebrating the song and conveying that meaning in the clearest way possible.
Chris obviously was already in the band when Laura, Toby, and I joined, and I think at that time we were all good musicians in our own right, but we weren't necessarily gelling that well. It took a bit of time for us to really find the I don't want to sound too pretentious. It took us time to find our sound, but it took us time to find that the right blend. I think because you just have to listen more, and I think this band for me, and I think for other people as well, has taught me to listen more. I think I probably came in thinking that I was had quite a sympathetic ear for what was going on around me, and I could respond to the vibe of the music and be appropriate and know when to shut up and all the rest of it. But all that the last few years has taught me is that I probably didn't have a clue back then, because I feel like this band's actually taught me that. So yeah, it's not always just about the raw level of ability. I think we're all good in our own way, but knowing when to take a step back and listening to what's around you, not just playing.
I think all of you said really great things, and I think it's really awesome because with anything in music, I haven't been in a band, but I've done collaborative things with other songwriters and my producer, and I think it's the same kind of thing where you need to find the people you connect with, you work well with, the ones who understand you, and that's not always the number one songwriter. It's not always the musician or the guitarist who never misses a note ever. Like there's humanity in this and authenticity in this and finding the people who you work well with. Those are the people you're going to create the best music with, because music is a vulnerable art and there's a lot of creativity that goes into it. So you need to find the people you connect with. And I think it's so interesting because the three of you have come from different backgrounds as solo artists yourselves and had your own journeys before forming the band. And so I can definitely imagine how it'd be a little difficult at the beginning to find your sound and be able to kind of take a step back and recognize there's other people involved now. It's not just you and your sound and your music, but collectively you're creating music together. And so what led you to kind of settle on your sound that you have now?
I don't think we have settled on our sound. I think even things that we released, 2 years ago, or even things that we were working on last year, they're constantly changing. And I think for me, at least, that's something that keeps this project like really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Is the fact that every time we're working on something new, it doesn't feel like there's a confine that we have to, I have to play the violin in this way, or Toby's guitar solo has to go here and sound like this, or Jay's drumming like has to, I think we're all open to changing things up, bringing in different influences. And I guess another thing that I thought of here was the fact that we do all have such different influences. I think, in terms of what we listen to or the shows that we go to and things like that, we definitely have overlaps, but we also have, bits and pieces that are completely different from everyone else. And I think that kind of keeps us evolving and sharing new things amongst each other, and keeps the sound growing kind of as we maybe change as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. That a lot of bands initially bond over a shared love of like a particular other band or a kind of music. And like Laura says, we have overlaps, but as individuals, we all have a really eclectic music tastes. So when it comes to creating something ourselves musically, if we can land on something that everybody likes, that everybody sort of is moved in a certain way by it, then that's the route that we sort of pursue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how you're so free with it as well because I do multi-genre stuff like myself as a songwriter, and I think it just keeps it fresh and interesting. And I don't want to create the same song over and over and over again. And so being open to trying new things, blending all of your interests, and continuing to evolve is really important because no artist wants to say, oh, my first single was my best one, or that was the perfect one, because where are you going to go from there? And so I think it's really great how you are aware of your sound evolving and embracing that, because it's just going to open more doors and allow your journey as a band to go down different avenues. So I'm pretty sure that you have had some more complicated situations as a band aside from developing your sound with different interests and just being different individuals as well. So how do you go about sorting out maybe some difficult moments and smoothing things out and sticking together as a band? Because I'm sure other bands, like if there's any conflict, it's like, oh, we're done. And you've stuck it out. So what are your tips for anyone who may be in a band or just in general of overcoming those challenges together?
I think we tend to just talk stuff out, don't we? We're not the kind of people to bottle stuff up or be passive aggressive. Generally, we have a sort of, we all have that sort of character that if something's bothering us, then we'll bring it up, and if we have some criticism to make or some suggestions about anything, we say it with love, and we can all take it. I think it's a fairly healthy dynamic. I think if you got one person who can't be take anything critically or be told anything negative, then maybe it brings all that down. But I don't think we have that.
No, I think it comes back to the chemistry thing, and we have a slightly kind of tongue-in-cheek or full transparency principle, but it's sincere as well, that when we're in the room, everyone feels free to just sort of speak their mind and articulate whatever's bothering them. And like Jay says, it's said with love, and it comes from a place of we all have a shared goal. We're all trying to get to the same ultimate objective. So how can we do it, in the best way together?
I love that so much. So, aside from your roles as playing your different instruments or singing in the band, do you guys have certain roles you take on? Like, is someone more of a band leader, or some of you more the writers, or do you all do everything kind of equally?
I suppose with the writing, a lot of it comes from you, doesn't it, Chris? To start off with, we've never ruled out or vetoed other people bringing ideas to the group, but generally the way it works is Chris brings an idea to the group, and then we develop it bit by bit. And then I think a lot of the other stuff we tend to share. I know, Laura, you've been more involved with the merch as well, and when we talk about putting on shows, we sort of divvy up jobs. I think we're all chipping in, and I think we've got quite a good balance of different duties, people doing different things, but it's not a hard rule on who does what, really.
No, I agree. I think usually as part of our weekly or sometimes bi-weekly band practice, we have kind of a band meeting as well, where if any of us have things to discuss around admin or things that need to be done, we'll kind of talk them out. And I feel like we've kind of naturally fallen into roles maybe that are things that we enjoy doing. When it comes to more of the admin side. So yeah, I really love doing anything kind of on the visual creative side, working on the cover art with artists, or working with you, Chris, as well on the video that we for the single Stranger Things that we just released, and merch and things like that. And then yeah, as Jay mentioned, probably yourself and Toby, Jay, more so working on kind of getting gigs and working with promoters, stuff like that. And yeah, so it really depends, but I don't think we have super defined roles. It's kind of whoever wants to pick up a task, go with it. But then yeah, definitely when it comes to the actual music itself, I would say Chris is definitely our band leader. Who yeah, as Jay said, brings demos and kind of, I guess, is our creative director in a way.
Oh, I'll take that. Thanks. I guess, it's not something we've ever formalized roles in the band, but that's all true of the kind of logistical, practical side of things. I mean, it's kind of like a small business being in an independent band now. There's so many angles you've got to cover. But I think beyond that, kind of from a like emotional point of view, we all have naturally settled into certain roles. There are some of us naturally placate things. Some of us have, there's just kind of a natural
Yeah.
emotional dynamic, which again comes back to that chemistry thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. I think what's really becoming clear from a lot of what all of you are saying is communication is very big, and also respecting each other and playing to your strengths and having those band meetings and seeing what needs done, seeing who wants to take it up. I honestly think that because you don't have these very strict rules, like I only do this and I only do this, you just do this, you just do that. I feel like when you're in those boxes, it can feel really like restrained, but it's amazing to hear how you understand that things need to get done and there's a bunch of different things that you're doing as a band and how it is. Yeah, it's like a small business, but you're all willing to work toward this shared goal and you've naturally gravitated toward things that you want to do. Awesome. Well, Laura mentioned Stranger Things, not the TV show, the song. So, can you guys share the inspiration behind this one?
Sure. So yeah, nothing to do with the TV show. So we were happy to ride on the coattails of some hashtags. Um, I think it's always hard talking about the genesis of certain songs because coming back to this kind of authenticity point, I don't think we ever sit down and think, "Oh, I'm going to write a song about X." It comes out of somewhere intangible, and whatever kind of comes out first naturally is then the point that I then pursue and start kind of picking at it and finding a song within that. And it's only in retrospect really that you start to think, well, what was that about? What part of my psyche is being excavated there? Um, but I think it's the more I reflect on it, the more I realize it's about this kind of paralysis and feeling unable to move forward in something in some way, whether that's literally or emotionally or whatever. And I think that's a feeling that is we've all experienced over the past few years with events as they've been. Everyone has been kind of stuck. So I think that was kind of the original spark that it grew from. But as with all things, I think the real beauty of Tragicomics songs now is that they end up way way beyond where they started. So it became this kind of much bigger scope than just the initial demo I had was a little kind of country lilt, and then it got built up into this much more sort of widescreen song.
Yeah, I would just add as well. I think it's really interesting, like being in the band, like listening to and playing and interpreting a song that somebody else has written the lyrics to. Because I know for me at least, like it really takes on its own meaning. Like sometimes Chris will bring a song and, maybe I'll just read or listen to the lyrics. And even though for me it might be about something completely different, I think it's really cool the way that the song can resonate with you. Like similarly to being a listener of any artist or any band, how you kind of find your own meaning in things.
Awesome. I love that so much. And I also wanted to ask, like your recording process. You have this whole songwriting side of things and your interpretation and bringing that authenticity, which I think is amazing. I love how songs can be interpreted and, listeners taking what they need from the song and relating how they need to relate to the song. But when you get into the studio and you're recording, I'm really interested to hear. So are you all like recording at the same time in like different rooms, or is a drum beat laid down and then you layer the instruments on top and then sing vocals after? I'm just really curious if it's all like a live performance or if you go track by track.
Yeah, so we recorded Stranger Things at a really cool recording studio here in Manchester called Pinhole Sound. So we booked a few days in the studio. We all went in together. And then, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. So we had drum and bass in a separate room,
Mhm.
and then the rest of us next door. and we essentially recorded like as a full band a few times. And then probably like, I don't know how many times, a lot. And then we just like tracked over, so overdubbed, right?
Yeah.
Our different parts on top over the following kind of few days. And I think that's an approach we've taken before, and it works really well for us.
I'm just gonna say we haven't always done stuff like that, and a lot of music that's recorded these days isn't done that way. It's very much a modular thing. Start with the drums, then the bass. Everything's one at a time, and we've done that before. But for the last few, done it this way, and it just seems to work for us. We capture the live energy, and it helps because we always find that by the time we go into the studio, we've got the song to a point where we feel like it sounds finished in the room. It's not like we're going into the studio to construct it or partially construct it. It's just it. We think, okay, this sounds great. Let's just capture this as best we can. So it's a nice sort of hybrid between the way they used to do things, where you had like sort of one take and maybe 4 tracks. The benefit of the new technology where you can just do things one after the other. So we do it live and then we go back and go over stuff as appropriate.
Yeah, it's sort of getting the best of both worlds, isn't it, really? Capturing the liveness of it, but then having the benefit of being able to build it up into something more than just that live take.
Pinhole as well, where we recorded Stranger Things, is like an absolute treasure trove of loads of different stuff that we can try. So we could probably stay in there for like weeks trying out like different guitars, different pedals, different random little things around the room. But we did use a tape machine for Stranger Things, which was pretty cool.
Towards the end, on the violin, was it?
And on the vocals, it was a reel-to-reel tape delay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of kind of old vintage gear in there, which we were let loose on, which is nice.
But that helps as well. Maybe a bit of a segue, but having Adam there, the way he directed things there, not so he was getting too involved, but he had these really good suggestions for, let's use this bit of gear, or let's just try that through this, and then you try it, and then if it sounds good, it's like that sound. That's how it was always meant to sound.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love how you guys are so willing to try new things. Like, you found a recording process that works for you. When you're in the studio, you're trying new things. And I think that's really important because some people can get locked into doing something a certain way and never trying something else. And so I love how you guys are so free with your process and inspiration and your roles in the band and now the recording as well. Is awesome.
The other thing is, one of the main reasons, I guess the main reason we all do this is we enjoy it. It's something that we love and we get something from. And to make sure that always stays the case, it has to remain engaging, and you have to keep it interesting for yourself. And if that gives us the opportunities to kind of try out new things and keep developing the way we do it, then all the better.
Absolutely. So, just to wrap things up, I have a final question for each of you to answer, and that is for anybody who is interested in joining a band. What advice would you give them?
Communication. I think it's not about posturing. It's not about you. It's about being part of a bigger thing and being willing to be open about that. I think the people that kind of get in it for I'm just going to play a few shows because I want to stand in front of a room full of people and have that kind of moment of hero worship. They frustrate me because it's not the right reasons. That's an added bonus, So I think that's what I would say.
I think my biggest tip is going to sound a bit cliched, but it's just like, put yourself out there. If there's an opportunity that you think is interesting, just go and try it. And it's kind of like dating, like bring your full self. If the group or situation that you walk into doesn't work, you don't feel comfortable, you don't get on with the people, then that's not the one for you, but you should keep trying. Because I think if I had let fear put me off, like I wouldn't be here now doing this interview. And I think the other thing is, like, I was in my 20s before I joined a band. So even if you're somebody who hasn't been doing it since you're like 12, 13, 14, just go for it. Because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Oh, there's the quotation.
It's true.
I'd agree with that. I think the fact that you're never too old, basically, to try it. Not that you're super old, but a lot of people who get into it, they get into it when they're in school, don't they? And yeah, I agree with what Chris said as well. I think you've got to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. A lot of people get into this stuff for the wrong reasons. Sometimes that end goal or that sort of perception can be what people are doing it for. I think there's a lot of people around now who've grown up with things like the X Factor and the pop idols and all of them. I think that has a negative effect on the way we approach this kind of thing. There are a lot more people out there who just think, oh, I just want to be famous, or I want to be a star, or even just on a small scale, just, oh, I want people to sing my songs back to me and chant my name and all that. I know that's great if you can do it, but there are no guarantees, and an infinitesimally small chance that you'll get anywhere doing this. That can't be the reason you're doing it. You've got to love what you do, because that might be all you've ever got to gain from it, really. Just enjoy it, and as long as you're doing what you love, then you're winning, and anything else is just a bonus.
Perfect. All three of you had such great advice. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. Can you share with everyone where they can find you online and listen to your music?
Absolutely. So you can find all of our music on all streaming platforms. That includes Spotify and Apple Music. We're on SoundCloud, or you can check out our Bandcamp, where we have some extra special merchandise produced in collaboration with Jude Wainwright, award-winning artist. Plug. And we're on social media and stuff, so give us a follow.
Perfect. Well, it was an honor having you on. This has been super fun. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Tragicomics. And of course, until next time,
Stay right on track.